Hey, if you've been wondering whether or not webinars still work, you're in the right place. On this episode, I'm going to talk to you about why 90% of them fail and the exact framework that works. Let's go. Now, before we get into it, subscribe, hit the notification button bell so that you can get notified. And I try to put episodes out every Tuesday, so check them out. All right, you're probably not going to like this, but the first reason is because of you. That's why it's failing. What I mean is that we spend way too much time talking about ourselves and our certifications and did all this other stuff that nobody really cares about. The thing, when people are coming to a masterclass or webinar, you've got to get to the point fast because your audience is just thinking, okay, what's that have to do with me? Now, part of this, let me just say this up front, part of this has to do with who your audience is and how well known you are. And you do kind of want to come up with a story or your story about how you got where you are, but you've got to make it brief, quick, 1 minute, 2 minutes. But you don't want to spend 10 minutes on it. So they came to the webinar, masterclass, whatever you're going to call it. They came to the solution. That's all they're really there for. Because when you're running ads to get people, it's mostly cold traffic. They've never heard of you before, and they don't need that background just yet. They just want the solution. All right, here's reason number two that these tend not to work out. And it's usually because you're teaching too much. Now, I talked about this a lot on the last episode that I did, but the thing is that most coaches, they really just want people to get a good result, even if the people aren't going to work with them, right? You want to make sure that they know that they can get the result because you know it works. And unfortunately, you tend to over deliver. And I bet most of you, that's what you're doing. The goal is to not overwhelm them and with too much information that they get stuck and not do anything. Or the other thing that happens is you give them so much information, they're like, oh, I can do all this on my own. I can do it without you. In a 45-minute webinar, you're not going to be able to teach them everything that they need to know anyway. Here's number three. It's that the title is not about the result. It's not about what they're going to walk away with. It's a YouTube video title, The 3 Hormone Myths, right? That's not a title. That's not compelling. That's not good enough to get people to show up. So you want to do something like, how to lose 10 pounds in 10 days without having to give up your favorite foods. Whatever it is, that you want to make it super compelling that they think to themselves, man, I've got to find that out. I've got to know what's going to happen here. How is that going to work? What's their method? And you can do a little mystery to it using my method. So make sure that the title is very compelling and that when they see it, they're going to think to themselves, man, I have got to show up. And you just want to focus on their outcomes, right? You don't want them to focus on anything else other than the results that they're going to get, because that's the pain point that they're to solve. The next one, number 4, is you're trying to sell too much on the webinar or do too much pre-qualification or filtering. So let me just talk about that in some detail because this has been coming up a lot lately. A lot of times people will contact me to run their ads when things aren't going well, right? They were doing great organically and then things started to taper off and they're trying to figure out, oh, what do I do? Maybe I should run some ads. And that's the worst time to start running ads, is that. And then the other thing that they tend to do is they tend to tighten everything else. So in other words, instead of talking to more people or taking more calls because they've had a bunch of people who, did not qualify monetarily or they just weren't a good fit otherwise, they try to filter too many people out because they think that now they're only going to get the people who really want to talk to them. When the truth is that most of the time you're going to filter out people who otherwise would have been a good fit. So they're trying to tighten things up. You can't do that on the webinar either. In other words, you can't try to just overqualify people before they book a call with you. And you don't want to try to sell them directly on the webinar. In the beginning, just try to book the calls. Just get the calls booked and focus on that method and make that work first. Do it many times and try to beat the goal that you have. Say, this one I'm going to get 5 calls booked, and this one, and then the next one I'm going to do 10, or whatever the numbers are. It doesn't really matter, but just try to get the calls booked. Okay, here's number 5. And and I don't know if this is a conscious mindset, but it's that you're only going to do the webinar once. And I don't know that people are thinking that directly, but I think subconsciously, if the webinar doesn't work, They think it never works, so they quit doing it. They quit trying to tweak it and so forth. If you're going to plan a webinar, if you're going to take the time to do that, you're going to invite people to come, you're going to create an email sequence, you're going to get all the things set up that you have to get set up, then you better be in it for the long haul. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to change things, right? Maybe, you tried it Saturday morning and you found out Saturday morning is a bad time. So you're like, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to do it Thursday evenings or Wednesday evenings or whatever it is. But you cannot come to this thing and it happened once or twice and think it doesn't work, because that's not really true. Make sure that you in your mind already know that you're going to have to do this multiple times. You want to test different hooks, different titles, but you want to try multiple iterations to make it better. And the other thing is, if you had some success, let's just say that you had 2 sales from it, right? You spent $1,000 in ads, you had 2 sales, and so you made $3,000 or $4,000 on it. So you had a 3 times return on ad spend. Now you want to change it. Why? What are you going to change that's actually going to make it better? Tests usually yield a poorer result. And when you don't have a high budget, you can't really afford that. You would rather go with what you know works and stick with it than to change a bunch of stuff. So you only change things when you know they're not working, not necessarily to make it better, unless you're prepared to spend more, right? And you're going to be okay with that kind of result. All right, let's talk about just a simple webinar formula that really works. And the first thing is starting with the outcome. So we talked about that. The title should promise a specific result. And I talked about that earlier. That is the key to this. It really is, because that's what people are going to sign up with. You can have a great post out there with all these bullet points, but the title really has to do the heavy lifting. All the other stuff is great and you should have it and you should make your bullet points and stuff very compelling, but just realize that's not the key to it. The title is. All right, number 2, you want to give them a quick win within the first 5 minutes if you can. So like a tiny shift they can make today, so that in their head they're like, oh, okay, I could do that. All I have to do is drink more water, and teach them a simplistic way that they could fit that into their schedule. Because if you make it complicated, they can't follow it. So if you have some kind of simple trick for them to do that, then that's what you want to give them. You want to give them a quick win so that they're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let's do this. And then they're going to keep going. All right, number 3 is teach a 3-part framework. It can be 5 parts, it can be whatever, but it can't be 7 parts or 10 parts. It's not going to work. You've got basically 45 minutes, more or less. And you're going to be lucky to get through 3 parts effectively. So you want to structure it into these digestible pillars, if that makes sense. Things that they can consume and understand the outline of it, not the nitty gritty details that they need to do this to get this and this, and set all these things up and all that stuff. Use stories, client stories, your stories. Your stories are okay when it's relevant to the framework part that you're getting into, okay? But it doesn't need to be all about your story, all right? But you want to use client stories or examples and explain each one and how that relates back to the framework. All right. Number 4 is you want to invite them to a one-on-one call. Don't get fancy. You don't have to get fancy. You don't have to get manipulative. You just ask them. If they really like what you've gone over, people are going to sign up because they're going to want to work with you. We like to work with people that we like. It's just the way it is. People that we think are going to give us the result that we want. And it's okay to invite them to it. I do like to say things like, hey, there's no pressure here. This is just a conversation to see where you are and see if this is a good fit for you, or if you want to take the next step, or if it's not a good fit for you right now. You can take the pressure off them and you if that makes you feel better, but be genuine about it. And I have one client who is such an amazing coach. She is so good, but she has a hard time with this because she feels like she's inconveniencing them or feels pushy or salesy. And that can be tough for a lot of people. But at the same time, you're doing a disservice to your potential clients by not making those offers, by not giving them that option, by not reiterating it to them. Because don't most of us need a little bit of a push to get something done that we don't really want to do? Like we want the result, but we don't want to do the work. We need that push. And frankly, you're doing them a disservice by not pushing them just a little. All right, number 5, and I just want you to know I like to do this a little bit differently than most. So it's about the follow-ups and the reminders. So you can do it one of two ways. One, you could tell them there's not going to be a replay. I'm not doing replays, and it saves you the step, right? And all your follow-up emails and such can be about booking calls and those kinds of things. Don't forget, you want to make sure you have your reminder emails set up too for people to show up. Okay, so when you're setting up your webinar, you want to make sure you're telling them, because when people signed up for something 2 days ago, they can't remember it's going to be in 2 days. They're not putting it on their calendar. You've got to remind them. But the follow-ups after that, after the webinar and the replay, it's up to you whether or not you want to send that out or not. The other way you could position it, though, is you could position it like, hey, I've got the replay. You send out a follow-up email after it's over. Say, hey, I've got the replay ready. Please reply back here and say replay if you want me to send it to you. Now, there's 2 reasons you want to do it that way. One, it gets you an interaction with them. And you could also say, hey, you could direct message me replay and include a link to your Facebook Messenger or Instagram or whatever. But there are 2 reasons. Are one, you got to reply back so you know they're at some level interested. So you might want to follow up with them more often, or you might want to follow up with them directly in your Gmail or whatever you use outside of your CRM. And the other thing is it tells the algorithms, the email algorithms, that people want to see your emails. That's one of the best things that you can do to keep out of the spam folder. Okay, that was a lot to pack in on one episode. I might have done too much, actually, but I think you've got it. So check out the transcript if you need it. You can also contact me if you have any questions or anything like that. But the biggest thing that would be nice is if you subscribe. If you like this kind of content and you want me to keep doing it, let me know. Subscribe, send me a message, and I'll be glad to respond and or keep doing it. All right, I'll see you next time.